Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Today we're looking at English speaking clubs.
Okay.
We've got some research on how beneficial they can be.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, looking at this stuff has kind of changed how I think about learning a new language.
Interesting. How so?
Well, one thing that really stood out is this idea that being uncomfortable can actually help you learn.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
So this research, it really highlights how important it is to actively participate, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not enough to just sort of show up and listen. You've got to really, jump in and get involved.
Dive in.
Yeah, exactly. Dive in. Even if you feel a little awkward.
Yeah.
That's where the power of immersion really kicks in.
I love that.
You know?
Dive right in.
Yeah.
And speaking of diving in, one thing that's super cool about these clubs is the diversity.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got people from all different backgrounds, all with their own unique ways of speaking English.
It's like a melting pot of English, right?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
A melting pot.
And that's amazing for learning because, you encounter different accents,
Oh, yeah.
different dialects, different idioms, and that helps you develop a more nuanced understanding of English.
Right. Like you're
Yeah.
going way beyond just textbook stuff.
Exactly. You're getting the real deal.
Totally. It reminds me of this one phrase,
Yeah.
spill the tea.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Right.
It's so funny because in some cultures, that could literally mean someone knocked over a cup of tea.
Right. Spilled it.
But in English-speaking clubs, you quickly pick up on that slang meaning right. It means share the gossip, tell me what's going on.
And that's something you wouldn't necessarily get from a textbook.
No, not at all. It's all about that real-world context.
Totally. And it's a perfect example of why setting goals is so important.
Oh, absolutely.
This research really stresses that, like having clear objectives for your language learning.
Yeah, you've got to be intentional about it. Instead of just saying, oh, I want to be more fluent, you got to get specific, set a SMART goal.
I love that. SMART goals.
Yeah, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay, break that down for us.
So for instance, instead of just saying, I want to be more fluent, you might say something like, I want to be able to talk for 5 minutes straight without hesitation on a specific topic by the end of the month, right?
Okay.
So you have a clear target, you know where you're going.
It's like having a roadmap.
Exactly, a roadmap for your language journey.
I love that.
And it makes it so much easier to stay motivated.
Totally. Now let's talk about something that can be a little tough.
Yeah.
Constructive criticism.
Oh, right.
The text talks about how important it is to seek feedback from other people in the club.
I think that's really valuable, yeah.
Yeah.
It's think of it like a musician getting feedback from their bandmates.
Okay.
Or an athlete working with a coach, right? Sometimes you need that fresh perspective to point out areas where you can improve.
Right.
Maybe it's your pronunciation or your grammar or even just how you're delivering your message.
Right. It's not about being mean or anything.
No, not at all.
It's about helping each other.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about growth.
So, how do you do that in a way that's, actually helpful?
Oh, there are some great techniques out there.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the sandwich method?
The sandwich method.
Yeah, it's where you start with some positive feedback.
Okay.
Then you offer a suggestion for improvement, and then you finish with another positive comment.
I like that.
So it's you're sandwiching the criticism between two pieces of praise.
It's like a compliment sandwich.
Exactly.
I love that.
Makes it a lot easier to receive, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And it makes it feel more collaborative, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
So speaking of collaboration, one thing that stood out to me in the research was all the different resources you can find in these clubs.
Oh, yeah, there's so much available.
It mentioned mentoring programs, workshops, language exchange partners.
It's like a whole support system for language learning.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So what are your thoughts on all these resources?
I mean, I think they can be incredibly helpful, both inside the club and even outside.
Yeah.
For example, a mentoring program can connect you with someone who's more experienced in English, and they can give you personalized guidance, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then workshops can help you really focus on specific areas, maybe like pronunciation or business English.
Right.
And then language exchange partners, that's an amazing way to practice with someone who's learning your native language.
That's so cool.
So you can kind of help each other out.
Like a win-win.
Exactly. I love that.
So, yeah, the resources are really out there. You just got to take advantage of them.
Okay, so we've talked about being active, about diversity, goal setting, getting feedback, using resources.
Right.
Now let's get to something that's maybe a little more challenging.
Okay, what's that?
Stepping outside your comfort zone. Yes.
This research really emphasizes how important that is for language growth.
It's so true, even though it can be a little scary sometimes.
Right.
But you know that feeling when you're trying to speak and you make a mistake and you kind of feel lost or embarrassed?
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
That's actually a good sign, believe it or not.
Really?
It means you're pushing yourself, you're challenging yourself, and that's when your brain really starts to learn.
So discomfort is a good thing.
In a way, yeah, because it means you're growing.
Okay, I'm starting to see it now.
Our brains, they thrive on novelty and challenge.
Mm.
So when we step outside that comfort zone, we're forcing our brains to adapt, to create new neural pathways.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And that's what leads to faster learning.
So basically, the more uncomfortable we are, the more we're learning.
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you're pushing yourself in a healthy way, of course.
Right, of course.
But yeah, embrace the discomfort. It's a sign of progress.
It's like a sign that you're on the right track.
Exactly.
I love that.
And, when you do step outside your comfort zone and you make progress, it's so important to celebrate those wins.
Oh, absolutely. This research talks about that too.
Yeah. Celebrating your successes, even the small ones, is so important for motivation.
Right, because it feels good.
Exactly. It boosts your confidence.
Yeah.
It reinforces those positive learning habits.
It's like, remember that feeling when you first learned to ride a bike?
Oh, yeah.
Or when you figured out how to play a song on an instrument?
Totally.
It's that same feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah, and it's the same with language. Every little victory, like using a new phrase correctly or understanding a complex sentence, it all deserves to be celebrated.
Because it's progress.
Exactly. And celebrating those small wins keeps you going, keeps you motivated.
Absolutely. It's all about recognizing how far you've come.
Exactly. Enjoy the journey. Right.
Yeah, love that. And speaking of the journey, one last thing that really stood out in the research was the importance of consistency.
Oh, that's key.
It's like with any skill, the more you practice, the better you get.
It's like working out a muscle, right?
Yeah, language muscle.
You got to exercise it regularly to see results.
So how do we do that? How do we stay consistent with our English?
Well, I think it's about making English a regular part of your life.
Okay.
It could be through these English-speaking clubs. It could be self-study. It could be watching movies, listening to podcasts. It could even just be like taking a few minutes each day to think in English.
Interesting.
Whatever works for you, but just make it a habit.
Make it a part of your routine.
Exactly.
So, wow, we've covered a lot today.
We have.
We've talked about being active, about diversity, setting goals, getting feedback, utilizing resources, stepping outside our comfort zones, celebrating our wins.
Yeah, all important stuff.
And of course, being consistent.
Absolutely.
So much good stuff in there.
It really highlights what makes these English-speaking clubs so effective.
Yeah. So what would you say is the most valuable takeaway for our listeners today?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's the power of combining, that structured learning with real-world practice.
Okay.
And English-speaking clubs really provide that perfect blend, right? You have that supportive environment to experiment, to make mistakes, to grow, and you get to connect with other people who are passionate about learning English.
I love that.
It's a really special combination.
So powerful. Now that you've heard all of this,
Yeah.
what's one small step that you can take today to improve your English?
Ooh, good question.
Right.
What could it be?
Maybe it's looking up English-speaking clubs in your area.
That's a good one.
Maybe it's setting a SMART goal for the week.
We'll love it.
Or even just, like, watching an English TV show without subtitles.
Oh, yeah, great idea.
What's it going to be?
The choice is yours.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It really does. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
My pleasure. Always great to be here.
Until next time.
See you then.